The views expressed during this program does not necessarily represent those of really any sane person with a brain. Listening to this program may actually kill brainwaves and make you dumber than you may already be. Listener discretion is advised. Really, because this show sucks to begin with.
Well, hello, and welcome to Fantasy Fat Guys. One of the fat guys unable to join us tonight because he had to work. But this is Porterhouse, and I'm here with Gino and Kevin, who were with me a couple of weeks ago. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Darren.
Hello, Darren.
Very nice to talk to you guys. We just wanted to do a quick show tonight to go over the early brackets. The March Madness is here, and it's exciting, and it's one of the funnest first 4 days of any event ever, really. It just always is, with all the upsets and the buzzer beaters and all the exciting things. And now we have to hope it lives up to that hype. And, you know, everybody fills out their brackets. And just remember, last year, my then 14-year-old daughter won our pool. So anything is possible. It doesn't take much skill to do really well in this. And she won because Baylor had her favorite YouTuber went to Baylor. And she liked the UCLA gymnastics team. So therefore, there's really no skill involved. But we're going to try to help you as much as we can with our brackets. Kev, you're going to say something?
But who finished second in your pool?
You did, sir.
I certainly did.
You did fine, sir. You know who remembers that you finished second? Just you.
I do.
The way it works, nobody ever remembers who finishes second. We're just going to give you some early, again, these things could all change. We don't know if any players got hurt in the last couple of days. We don't know if anybody's getting suspended. We don't know if there's a COVID breakout. So this is all just a really early look. One of the things that we wanted to discuss was our guesses. The three of us have been doing this for a long time, and we pick our 68 teams. I went 67 of 68. I only lost one, and it was one I knew I was going to lose. I had North Texas in because I wanted to see North Texas get the at-large bid. As my friend Kevin pointed out to me earlier, they lost two of their last three. What the hell are you thinking? And he was right. But at the same time, I did not have Miami in, and apparently I was way off because they had Miami as a 10 seed. G, who did you have? How did you do?
I was 66 of 68. I missed two teams, BYU and SMU. The two teams I did not have in were Michigan and Notre Dame. I honestly didn't think that the ACC was going to get a fourth team in. They did.
They got a 15.
I had BYU in there only because although their record wasn't so great, they played a lot of good games against Gonzaga, against St. Mary's, against San Francisco, and all three of those teams actually were in the tournament and ranked pretty decently. So from that perspective, I thought, we had a shot at that. I was not in love with the Big Ten getting a ninth team in. Michigan, Rutgers, Indiana. Once we get down past the first six, everybody seems to just be bunched up. You could have taken any two of those three. It would have been fine, but they got everybody in. So,
the funny thing about BYU, and I think what hurt them, is they had a nice win over Oregon early in the year, but then Oregon tanked. If Oregon would have stayed on the trajectory they were on for a while, where they beat UCLA and USC and all that stuff, I think BYU would have had a better case because they would have had a really nice out-of-conference win. Just a thought. Yeah. Kev, how did you do?
Yeah. I went 66 of 68. The two I had in that they did not were Wake Forest and Texas A&M. I did not have Rutgers and Michigan. One of the things I have a big problem with is putting a team that's 17 and 14 into the tournament. I know that
you don't think 3 games above 500 is good enough, Kev?
Yeah. And Rutgers, the second half of the year they had some really great wins, but like we talked previously, they had some awful losses early.
They lost to Lafayette at home, who was a bottom feeder in the Patriot. They lost at UMass. Again, it was a buzzer beater, but they still lost at UMass. They got blown out at Seton Hall, who was a good team, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, Rutgers had some really bad losses, and they had some really great wins. It's just one of those things.
And I had, like I said, Texas A&M. I thought they deserved in over Michigan. A&M really went through a struggle there in early February. I think they lost about 7 or 8 in a row. But they've bounced back so nice. They had a real good run through the SEC. I know they got blown out today a bit by Tennessee, so that may have been a factor in them not making it. And I thought Wake should have been in. I had no problem with the other 5 ACCs. I have a problem with Miami getting a 10 seed and Notre Dame being in the playing game.
Well, Notre Dame beat Miami.
Notre Dame finished second. Miami finished fourth. Notre Dame has better net ratings. They have the better BPI ratings, but somehow they're in the play-in and Miami's a 10.
You know, it's funny. Those last 4 teams, really not a lot of great nets on there. Rutgers is in the 70s. Wyoming's at 50. You know, Notre Dame's in the 50s. You know, Indiana's, I think it was in the 40s. I think they had the best net of the 4 teams, but it wasn't really like anything was they really weren't going off that net, which they were selling us on all year long, that was going to be like the deciding factor. And they also took away the last 10 games, meaning something, which I think hurts teams like Texas A&M just because they were hot. And one thing that also stands out to you is, well, we were talking about before we got on air, but, Gino was mentioning to me that Dayton was the 53rd team, 68-19. I don't know why I said 53rd, 60-19. And basically what happened was that when Richmond took a spot, they took an A-10 spot. Yeah. They're like, we're not giving the A-10 3. So we're going to give you guys these 2. And Richmond took Dayton out of it. If Richmond had lost, Dayton would have been in. That's really what it comes down to.
But I had trouble splitting between VCU and Dayton. I thought they were pretty much even.
Yeah, neither. Again, because of COVID, there was not a lot of out-of-conference scheduling by a lot of teams, like a lot of great out-of-conference. You look at everybody, and you take away Tennessee and a few teams that scheduled everybody. But a lot of teams did not schedule very much, and it showed. Like you look at a team like Wake Forest, like you brought up, and you guys know I'm a Wake fan. They scheduled Oregon State, which would normally be good coming off a Final 8 year, but they won 3 games this year. No one expected that. They scheduled LSU. They lost that game. They beat North Carolina. They beat Notre Dame. They got swept by Miami, though, and they got swept by Duke. And I think that first-round loss to BC was their only bad loss of the year, but I think it was enough to put them out. Miami escaped against BC, and that puts them in. Gee, were you about to say something?
Out of the 68, normally between the 3 of us, we're pretty accurate with our assumptions. We're usually pretty close. Based on what the committee said, the 69th team was Dayton. The 70th team, the second team out, was Oklahoma, and the 3 of us didn't even mention Oklahoma. So sometimes I think what they're looking at is skewed a little differently than what we were all looking at. So,
yeah, another 18 and 15 team, slightly actually worse percentage-wise than the 17 and 14 Michigan team. Just the way it works.
But 18 and 15, right on target with. Good, Kev.
I was gonna say Oklahoma.
Every loss with what Kev said before. So,
I think Oklahoma, every loss was one of those quality losses. I just didn't think they had enough quality wins. They seemed to be up on the bottom of the conference.
Oklahoma had an interesting case early on because what they had done is they beat Arkansas pretty big, and they beat Florida. They lost to Butler and Utah State, 2 teams that were bottom of one division and mid-pack in another. Mountain West got a lot of respect. They got 4 teams, but Utah State was, the 6th team in that league, 7th, depending on how you look at it. And, so I think that those losses were a little bit damaging for them. They had a rough middle of the middle part of the season. I think they also beat up on the lower teams a little bit better than some of the other teams. They finished 7-11 in their league. It's a tough league. TCU celebrating getting 8 conference wins. It's the most they've ever had. 8 and 10. It's the best they've ever done. Just put it that way. That's how tough the league is. And they go in as a 9 seed, so it's all over the place. Quick look, any matchups that stood out to you guys? Give me like 2 or 3 matchups that you can't wait to watch this Thursday, Friday.
A 7-10 matchup that I think is very interesting is Murray State and San Francisco.
I do too.
I think both teams were underrated or undefeated. I know Murray State's not going to get the respect out of the Ohio Valley. San Fran had a very good season. I thought they both should have been ranked higher. So I think that's a very interesting 7-10 matchup.
Gee, is there another one that you like?
Yeah, Loyola Chicago, Ohio State, another 7-10 matchup. Basically, just exactly what Kevin said, the same kind of thing. Good teams. Loyola Chicago's a very good team. They're going to play some good defense, and another. I'm actually looking forward to seeing that one. The other one I'm looking forward to is a nice 8-9 matchup with San Diego State and Creighton.
I think it's a good matchup as well. I mean, because with San Diego State and Creighton, you have a team that plays really slow in all defense, another team that's shooting threes and moving the ball and free flowing offense. So it's a little bit of a different game. The one, there's a 13-4 matchup that I think is intriguing, and that's Vermont, Arkansas. Vermont is a really good offensive team. So Arkansas is they're a really good team, but they kind of play a frenetic pace, and Vermont plays kind of like not that they play a slowdown. They beat every team in their conference tournament by over 30, which I've never heard of before. They just rolled through a very porous America East, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I mean, they are efficient on offense. They score really well. I think that they handle the ball. They don't turn it over much. If they can handle the pressure of Arkansas, I think Vermont can win. Another one that I kind of like also is UAB Houston. Houston made that Final Four run last year. I think UAB beats them. It's a team that plays really fast and puts up a lot of shots. And Jelly Walker leading the way at whatever he is, 5'10", they list him at. Maybe he's 5'8", and scoring 20 points a game. And he's just a nudge. And I think Houston's pressure is going to have a hard time with them. Those are a couple of the matchups that I stand out with. Kev?
I agree with you on the UAB. I actually have them in as one of my 5-12 upsets. They really look sharp.
I got one other matchup I kind of like. One other matchup I kind of like, and that's the another 8-9 Boise State Memphis. I think that could be a really, really good game. I think that's going to be a solid game.
Kev, you were saying something too.
Well, I was going to say just about UAB. Just they had a real good run through the Conference USA tournament there, and I was really impressed watching them.
Boise State matchup, G, like you said, you want to find a team that plays really fast against a team that plays really slow? Memphis and Boise State. Boise State, everybody can shoot. They're deliberate. They are a very, very slow-paced team. Memphis, on the other hand, is athletic. They'll probably have the 5 best athletes on the court at any given time. Not to insult the Boise State players, as Memphis is that talented. It's just going to be interesting to see if Memphis is able to avoid the turnovers and hit jumpers. Today, they couldn't hit a 3-point shot. They hit, I think one for the whole game. If they can't hit jump shots, they're going to be in trouble because Boise's got size and they've got skill. So that's a real interesting matchup.
Any 14s or 15s you think might possibly make some noise?
The 13 one I gave you, I like Vermont. And I think Chattanooga will be competitive for a little while. I also think South Dakota State will be a little bit competitive for a little while. When I look at the 14s, Colgate can shoot. Colgate can flat out shoot, and they are not, big. I mean, they have height, but they don't have bulk. You know what I mean? But if they're hot, it could be that, that Middle Tennessee Michigan State game. I love bringing that up to you, Kev, because I remember you had the Michigan State as the champ.
Yep.
But that one would be the most likely 14. Out of the 15s, Delaware against Villanova might be the best matchup. I think Delaware is probably slightly underseeded. I think the Colonials usually a little bit of a better conference than they gave it credit for. I know they were a 5 seed out of their league, but the league was very, very close together this year. So I don't really think that any of the 15s are going to beat any of the 2s. St. Peter's, they're going to play really hard, but they just don't have, the size, Or Shaheen Holloway will have those guys playing really, really hard. But Kentucky's just too big. It's going to remind me of that Stony Brook Kentucky game a few years back. I think that game could get ugly. Spreads like 17 in that one. So we'll see what happens with that. So, Gino, you said you wanted to talk a little bit about the South tonight. So give us your take on the South, and then Kev's going to chime in, and so am I.
I think the South has some really good teams.